day, dear fellow Toastmasters and honorable guests. I'm Aina from Kazakhstan, belong to two Toastmaster clubs, District 108 Odyssey Ambassador. This podcast is about Odyssey project within Toastmaster International. Odyssey is a key for mentoring and networking pair. Let's invite our today's guest. She's a neuroleadership expert who equips Fortune 500 leaders with the tools to navigate uncertainty and pressure, featured in Harvard Business Review and the Performance Paradox and on TEDx. She teaches one powerful truth: your brain is a great asset, and learning how to leverage it well is the greatest opportunity. She is currently pursuing Toastmaster Accredited Speaker Designation, also works with Toastmaster and the Natural Speaker Association. Let's welcome our guest, Traca Savadogo.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome. Let's start. Traca, what first sparked your passion for public speaking?
That part of public speaking, it comes from a couple different things. One, I greatly benefited from several different public speakers. I would listen to cassette tapes in my car, Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn, as I was traveling a lot early in my career for work. And that really made an impact on me. And then also in 2019, I had the opportunity to do a TEDx talk. I got invited, which is very rare. And so I skipped the application process and was invited to give my talk for that audience. And it was my very first public speech in front of 3,000 people. Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was a big journey. And then, coming off the heels of people I admired so much, I wanted to make sure that I delivered in a way that paid tribute to their memory and what the caliber of work that they were doing.
I see. Okay. So first experience with TEDx. I'm so inspired. Okay, let's move to the next question. From visiting over 50 clubs and having a one-on-one conversations with top people and sharpening your evaluation skills daily across 8 clubs, what key lessons and advantages have you gained from this intense experience?
It's almost unbelievable to think about the amount of lessons that I gained from a very short period of time. So, I'm a big fan of what they call ultra learning, and that is an immersive learning experience and for in a short time, very intense period. And so, when I looked at the different clubs around the world and I was looking at advanced clubs, I wanted to have a peer network of people who were really talented, who could provide great feedback and to also inspire me as well by example. I created a spreadsheet of all the advanced clubs on the Toastmaster website and started mapping them out. Like, what time do they meet? What day do they meet? How can I get access to them? All the clubs, some of them have their information publicly online, some of them don't. And so it was a big process, even just building out the spreadsheet and kind of figuring out how I was going to do that. And then once I got started, the real impetus was in my own club. I had decided that I was going to complete a pathway and I like to schedule my goals out. And so I scheduled a talk every 2 weeks until the pathway ran out. And there was some pushback from my club because they thought I was speaking too much and encouraged me. They didn't want me to do the longer speeches within my club. They encouraged me to go find other clubs to do that. And so when I started looking at other clubs, I was like, this is so exciting. I would attend clubs in Australia that they only did table topics for their club. I attended meetings in where they would start their meeting off with like tech tips and apply different technology software that would benefit the speakers. One time they did a session just on different microphones or different presentation software. And so it was really exciting how other clubs were pouring into ways that would develop their membership. And so I just kept going, like, what else is out here? This is amazing. And so the idea came that when I was looking at other clubs, one of the things that was a really big problem for me was deep anxiety around speaking. And so I would have all this nervous energy build up, give the talk, and then crash. And then a lot of nervous energy and then crash. So every 2 weeks that was happening. And what I realized, well, what if I just pick up the pace and started speaking more? And I realized that the more I spoke, I would get a speech I would give a speech on Monday, get feedback on it, deliver it again on Tuesday, get feedback on that, deliver it again on Wednesday, and then decide whether I needed to keep going with it or not. And that turned into a really amazing experience. But also by doing that and knowing that I had these speeches already booked out, what was fascinating is I could start experimenting more. And so instead of just trying to figure out how to give the speech, I would try different presentation softwares. I would try different lighting setups. I would try different microphones using a clicker or instead of a mouse to advance my slides. So it was really a proving ground to be able to have a lot of exposure to experiment, try again. And if, even if it didn't work out, it didn't matter. I had another speech scheduled for the next day. And it worked really well for me. And so last year, I ended up giving a total of 48 speeches throughout Toastmasters. And I would encourage folks to even think about doing that again. It's a fantastic experience. And also visiting clubs in other areas around the world. A lot of them are a little bit different, and it's just a little bit different enough that you get ideas and can implement them. It's really fantastic.
Wow. So, very interesting journey. Okay. Why did you pursue accredited speaker title? What kind of challenge you face?
Yeah, so a lot of folks may not know this, but the accredited speaker designation within Toastmasters includes giving speeches outside of Toastmasters. So part of the criteria is to complete a pathway, which a lot of people don't complete a pathway within Toastmasters. I think I heard only 60% of the people who start a pathway actually finish it. And so that gave me a goal to go towards, is to finish a pathway. And then also, the accredited speaker designation is about speaking outside of Toastmasters, giving 25 speeches outside of Toastmasters. A portion of those need to be paid. Some of them can be online, but a good number of them need to be in person. And so I started my speaking journey on a stage that wasn't at Toastmasters. And so and then after my TEDx talk got released, I was invited to speak at several different organizations. And so that was normal for me. Speaking at Toastmasters was not normal for me. So I had to learn the cadence of how that worked. But it was also, I had a mentor of mine. There's a man who is a CSP an accredited speaker, and he said that would be my next challenge. He encouraged me to think about getting the accredited speaker designation because it was a forcing function, forcing me to get better, forcing me to think about one of the things within Toastmasters that's really interesting is the type of speeches that people often give in Toastmasters are not something somebody would book you for outside of Toastmasters. There's a lot of like storytelling, narrative, personal story kind of things, but that's not something somebody would pay for in the public marketplace. And so that also requires a different type of speaking, a different type of topic. And so it was, again, it was a forcing function to make me think a little bit differently. And then also because I was thinking about how I would present this to a corporation or an association, my talks, when I brought them to my Toastmaster club, they were very different than what the norm within that Toastmaster club was like. And also, I remember the first time I started using a slide deck, that was a little bit risky and something different. And I was like, this is totally normal in the and expected in the professional world, but in Toastmasters, it's not. And so I was looking to bridge those two worlds and my own lived experience in the professional world, bringing that into Toastmasters. So they go both ways.
Okay, thank you very much for your detailed answer. So, what advice would you give to speakers aiming for professional level impact?
It's a journey and it's an continuous journey of learning, experimenting. I've studied intensely other speakers and decided, well, like, what was it about that speech that worked? And what was it about storytelling? I like my favorite speech is the speech I can't get out of my mind the next morning. And I often will see a speaker and the next morning I'll try and remember what was it that they said? What was the impact that they had on me? And a lot of times it's not something that would last that had any kind of specifics in the next day. But then I would look at other speakers and I can repeat exactly what they said in their speech. And, sometimes days, weeks later, or that some of their messages get woven into the fabric about how I live on my own day-to-day life, or I'll even want to share it with a friend. And so those were the kind of speeches that really were exciting to me. And that was a craft that I made an intention to study, is what made them so impactful and why are we still talking about certain speeches days, months, years later? What makes that an extraordinary speech? And so studying the craft is a really big piece of it.
Oh, thank you. What's one message you hope the audience takes away from your talks?
Your brain is your greatest asset, and
Mhm.
most of us were never taught how to use how to leverage it in a way. So my TEDx talk was really challenging because I was overcoming a lot of emotions, a lot of anxiety. I was stepping on a stage that was bigger than anything I ever dared to dream on my own. And how do you live up to those experiences when they come your way? And I didn't. I procrastinated like crazy. And I learned that by doing some things that are really challenging, what can often happen is a trauma response will kick in, and then you lose access to the part of your brain, this prefrontal cortex on your brain. This is the part of your brain that's responsible for executive function, thinking clearly, planning, creativity. And in a freeze response, I did not have access to that part of my brain. So I was very slow at trying to come up with ideas. I knew I wanted this opportunity, but I couldn't figure out why I was getting in my own way. And I think that this is a very normal thing that happens to people. We just don't talk about it and we don't know how to work through it. And so a lot of my work now is about demystifying, like, hey, what's happening to you? And also in the professional world, what's happening to your people? They're not procrastinating to have a low performance on purpose. There's something going on inside of them. And so, how do we bridge the gap to be able to get them to a higher level of performance and to get them out of that survival mode? It's really important. And I think a lot of people, we don't know how to work through all of that stuff. We weren't taught that. And so I find that's an exciting frontier for us to explore.
Wow, thank you. You have a very wide, different parts of experience. Thank you very much for sharing. When I met you in Anatolia Toastmaster clubs, you spoke about life quakes, those major unexpected life changes. How life quakes shaped your journey as a speaker and as a person.
Yeah, life quakes, they can take you down. And I think it's really interesting. My TEDx talk was one of those turning points in my life where I wanted that opportunity, but I wasn't showing up well for that initially. And I couldn't figure out how to get out of my own way and get into the what I was actually trying to accomplish. And I think that when we have, and they say that throughout our lifetime, the average person has three major life quakes. But when it happens to you, we have a tendency to isolate ourselves and we hold back. People don't, we don't understand what's going on with ourselves. Other people don't know how to support us. And so it becomes a very isolating thing. And what was really exciting for me was to learn this is normal. It happens to people. We just don't talk about it. And what I like to do is lift the veil on difficult conversations. So I will talk, I've given speeches on women in negotiation. I've given talks on a lot of different things that are really challenging. But if we don't talk about them, how do you actually get better at it? And how do you normalize what's going on so that you can get the support that you need and also have a roadmap to get out of that situation? And so I think life quakes are really important. And when I spoke last week at Anatolia Toastmasters, I was told that several of their members wouldn't be at that meeting because they were impacted by a recent earthquake and that a lot of people weren't able to even return to their homes yet. And I think until something like that happens to you, we really don't understand the magnitude of what that does to you. Sometimes it can be just like a moment in your history, but then for other people, if you don't know how to deal with it, it can unmoor you and unroot the very fabric of who you are, and it can impact you for the rest of your life. Some people stay stuck in that mode for the rest of their life. And my goal was to provide some hope and some understanding about like, hey, what happens in your brain when this stuff happens? And then how do you navigate your way out of it? So that was really important to me.
Wow, thank you for your input, helping people get out of the stress. Yeah, as you know that this podcast is about Odyssey. Have you heard about the Odyssey project?
I hadn't, and that was so exciting. I think it's a fantastic resource, and I love that you're advancing these conversations because one of the things that's really important to me is that I have these curiosity conversations with people, and I like to look at people who excel at what they're doing and then ask them, how did you become great? What was your process along the way? And there's we very rarely ask people like, okay, take me back. Step one, what did you do? Next decision, what was that next decision that you made? And every journey to somebody acquiring excellence has that, but we very rarely ever ask them about their process. And so I think that what you're doing is fantastic because there's so many great people to learn from, but also that the Toastmasters meeting in general doesn't really draw those lessons out. And then they also, because pick topics that reveal their journey. I mean, what I love, and for me, when I'm in a Toastmaster meeting, is I will give speeches about my process or the things that I'm learning so that I can democratize and share with my club members like what I'm learning. And then also I use table topics to draw out these topics. I'll ask them about that process and how other people are developing their skills within the club. But I think that's pretty rare. And I would love to see that a shift in that because there's so much collective wisdom that we have within the group, especially the leaders who have been around for a while and they've developed a level of expertise. They also probably have a list of people they really admire. And so drawing out those conversations and what's special about that is really important. But I'm glad that you're providing a platform so that people can learn from others in that way as well.
Thank you very much for your nice words. So hope to see you that you will join our Odyssey project.
It'd be amazing. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so it was a nice uh, and we were so honored to have you in our Odyssey podcast. Thank you for coming and sharing your wisdom and tips and shining with your, incredible speeches that you inspire all of us to follow your path. Very intense, with intense experience. So good luck and hope to see you again.
Excellent. Thank you very much. This was such a joy. Thank you.